The Penn State Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science encompasses a broad spectrum of disciplines and areas of research, from how to forecast evolving weather patterns to understanding the interaction of weather and economic markets. Many of our faculty members are focusing on how the climate is changing and what impacts that may have on the atmosphere. Dr. Melissa Gervais, an assistant professor of meteorology and atmospheric science, has taken her research to the ends of the earth. She studies how changes in surface forcing by oceans and sea ice might influence atmospheric circulation. Learn more about her research in tonight's edition of Climate Eyes, produced by students in the department, Jordan, Jenna, and Matt Hoenig.
Dr. Gervais currently researches the impacts between the oceans and sea ice and how they can affect the atmosphere. Her research works as an aid in understanding specific patterns conducive to climate change. Her previous experiences have driven her to study the ocean and its sea ice. While in college, she was given the opportunity to do fieldwork on a vessel between Iceland and Greenland, where she launched weather balloons into polar lows. She has even traveled on a Canadian icebreaker, where they broke through sea ice and took ocean measurements over a 6-week period. Her extensive experience of studying sea ice has given her necessary knowledge to use as an aid throughout her research.
You get a really different understanding of what sea ice is, because otherwise, I use it in a model, but I wouldn't really understand how dynamic it is. I don't think I would have had the same appreciation if I hadn't seen it in person.
In general, oceans are warming across the globe, but Dr. Gervais is studying a region that is not warming as rapidly as other areas. In fact, some would almost consider the area to be cooling. The location she studies is in the North Atlantic Ocean, just south of Greenland. Not only does Dr. Gervais' research account for the region she studies, but it also provides answers to global questions regarding climate change and resulting atmospheric events.
So I've looked before at, and I use machine learning to accomplish this. It's one of the ways that we do this. So we can look at different patterns of variability and see if there's an increasing or decreasing trend in those patterns in the future.
Dr. Gervais has written a paper on how model data shows that the cold patterns occurring now, such as large troughs over the eastern United States, will be more common in the near future. These specific patterns are creating areas with colder climate conditions. In her paper, she addresses the reasoning behind these colder weather patterns while addressing the fact that the Earth itself is increasing in temperature. So even though temperatures in Earth's atmosphere are increasing, specific patterns such as these are becoming more common in the atmosphere, according to new model data.
So everybody kind of gets used to the weather that they have. And so then the question is, I'm used to this base temperature, and then this is the cold pattern that comes through. So, it's kind of like Montreal becomes New York, but then now you're used to being a New Yorker.
Given this research, the possible effects of climate change are already evident in the atmosphere.
You can't say any given storm is because of climate change, but we might be able to say we might experience an increase in frequency of different things.
Dr. Gervais' research explains the disparity of a changing climate and how it will affect future regions by either experiencing more frequent colder or warmer patterns than usual. When researchers are looking into the future of the effects of climate change, it is hard to know exactly what will happen. What is certain, though, is that coastal communities will be dealing with more flooding and sea level rise, all because of the increasing temperatures of the Earth's surface and oceans. There will be economic adversity brought on by the changing climate. Communities with more sufficient funds will be able to adhere to the adversity of the changing weather patterns, but it will be harder for less fortunate communities to be able to adjust to the infrastructural maintenance sufficiently needed to live in a climate that is different than it was in the past.
And then there's also making sure that we're prepared for our new state. So we need to start putting in place changes in infrastructure to help us with what we expect our future climate to be.
Thankfully, there are still many things people can do to reduce emissions. Without the reduction of emissions, the severity of climate change will continue to grow. Even though the effects of climate change are consequential, it is never too late to have hope in how we can change the future. For Weather World, I'm Matt Hoenig.